Jai Hind students, how are you all? I hope you all are fit and fine. Now today in the second module, we will discuss that how the East India Company began trade in Bengal. So the first English factory was set up on the bank of river Hooghly in 1651 that we have discussed in the first module as well. This was the base from which the company's traders, known as that time as factors, they operated. Means this was the place where they started operating the trade. The factory had a warehouse where the goods for the exports were stored, and it had offices where company officials used to sit. As trader or the trade expanded, the company convinced merchants and traders to come and settle near the factory so that the factory can flourish properly. And in 1696, it began building a fort around the settlement. After 2 years, it bribed the Mughal officials also for getting company zamindari right. One of these, they got 3 villages. One of these was Kolikata, which later on grew as Calcutta, and presently it is known as Kolkata. It also persuaded the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman granting the company the right to trade duty free, means they will not pay any kind of duty. The company tried continuously to press for more concessions and started manipulating their existing privileges. And this was only thou the early 18th century, the conflict between the company and Nawab of Bengal intensified after the death of Aurangzeb. The Bengal Nawab asserted their power and autonomy, and other regional powers were doing at the same time. As when Aurangzeb became, you can say, like, the power of Aurangzeb started demonizing, and even after his death, the Subadars started asserting their areas, their power. So Murshid Ali Khan, who was the Subadar of Bengal, was followed by Alivardi Khan and then Sirajuddaulah as the Nawab of Bengal. Each one of them was a strong ruler, and they refused to grant the company concession, demanded large tribute for the company's right to trade, and denied it any right to mint coins, and even stopped it from extending its fortification. The company on its part declared that the unjust demand of the local officials were ruining the trade of the company, and the trade could flourish only if the duties were removed. When Alivardi Khan died in 1756, Sirajuddaulah became the Nawab of Bengal, and the company was worried about his power and keen on a puppet ruler. Puppet ruler means who will follow the company's instruction and do whatever company will say, who would willingly give trade concession and other privileges also. So it tried, though without any kind of success, to help one of the Sirajuddaullah's rival to become the Nawab. An infuriated Sirajuddaulah asked the company to stop meddling in the political affairs of his dominion and stop fortification. And he ordered to pay the revenues also. After negotiation failed, the Nawab marched with 30,000 soldiers to the English factory at Kashim Bazar and captured the company officials, blockaded and locked the warehouses, disalarmed all Englishmen, and blockaded English ships also. Then he marched to Calcutta to establish control over the company's fort there. On hearing the news of the fall of Calcutta, company officials in Madras sent forces under the command of Robert Clive. It was the time when Robert Clive came in Bengal and reinforced the naval fleet. Prolonged negotiation with the Nawab followed. Finally, in 1757, Robert Clive led the company's army against Sirajuddaulah at Plassey. Plassey was the place because of the palash tree, that the flower, palash flower, which generally we use in Holi. And One of Shirajuddaulah's commander, Mir Zafar, who was actually not happy with Nawab Shirajuddaulah, he even didn't fight the battle on behalf of Shirajuddaulah, and that is the reason Clive have managed to secure, as Clive supported Mir Zafar and promised Mir Zafar that after Shirajuddaullah's death he will become the Nawab. And finally Shirajuddaulah was crushed. The Battle of Plassey became famous because it was the first major victory of the company which actually the company won in India. Later on, after the defeat of Plassey, Shirajuddaulah was assassinated and Mir Zafar made the Nawab. The company was still unwilling to take over the responsibility of administration. It was the time. Company did not want to take the responsibility of administration. And soon the company discovered that this was rather difficult, for even the puppet Nawabs were always as helpful as the company wanted them to be. After all, they had to maintain the basic appearance of the dignity and the sovereignty. Now, when Mir Jafar protested, the company disposed him and installed Mir Qasim in his place. When Mir Qasim complained, he in turn was defeated in the battle fought at Buxar in 1764, which was driven out by the Bengal. Mir Zafar was reinstalled and the Nawab had to pay 5 lakh every month, but the company wanted more money to finance its war and meet the demands of trade and its other expenses. It wanted more territories and more revenue. By the time when Mir Zafar died in 1765, the mood of the company had changed, and having felt to work with puppet Nawab, Clive declared that we must indeed become Nawabs ourselves. And it was the time when the company officials, they have only declared themselves as Nabobs. Actually, they could not pronounce Nawab. They declared themselves Nabob. It means, of course, that the company acquired more power and authority, but it also meant something else. Each company servant began to have vision of living like the Nawabs. And after the Battle of Plassey, the actual Nawab of Bengal were forced to give land, vast sums of money as personal gift to company officials. Robert Clive himself amassed a fortune in India. He had come to Madras from England in 1743. At that time he was only 18 years old. When in 1767 he left India, his Indian fortune was worth 4 lakh euro. And interestingly, when he was appointed governor of Bengal in 1764, he was asked to remove corruption in company administration, but he was himself cross-examined in 1772 by the British, and the parliament, which was suspicious of his vast wealth, he was acquitted, and in 1774 he committed suicide. Now, if we analyze the process of annexation of Indian states by the East India Company, we can find out from the 1757 to 1857 certain key aspects emerged. Like the company rarely launched a direct military attack on an unknown territory. Instead, it used a variety of political, economic and diplomatic methods to extend its influence before annexing any Indian kingdom. After the Battle of Buxar, the company appointed residents in Indian states. They were political or commercial agents, and their job was to serve and further interest of the company. Through the residents, the company officials began interfering in the internal affairs of the Indian states, and they tried to decide who was the successor of the throne and who was to be appointed at administrative posts. Sometime the company forced the state into a subsidiary alliance also. Now, according to the term of this alliance, Indian rulers were not allowed to have their independent armed forces, where they were to be protected by the company but had to pay the subsidiary forces that the company was supposed to maintain for the purpose of this protection. If the Indian ruler failed to make the payment, means they will have to pay, they will get the protection from the company but they will have to pay, and if they by chance fail to pay the payment, to pay whatever they are, the amount is fixed, they will have to, it will be taken, their territory will be taken as a penalty. So this is only, this much only we will discuss in this module. In the next module we will discuss about Tipu Sultan and the battle between Marathas and company. Till then, goodbye, Jai Hind.